Hello everybody, this is Gareth Coon Speaks back here with another video. This one's on American news with Zionist flavour. I'd like you to hit the subscribe bar if you'd like to subscribe to either my YouTube or TikTok account. You can also hit the subscribe bar or give me a thumbs up if you like the video, or hit the notification bell to be notified when I post my next post. Or otherwise you could look me up on my website, which is full of Christian, Jewish, Zionist knowledge and news from around the world. And or otherwise you can fund my website and my YouTube and TikTok by hitting PayPal garethcahoon3@gmail.com. So this first news is Trump backs Israel's Gaza military campaign as Netanyahu foresees final stage of war. Jerusalem. Israel in its final stages of the war with Hamas in Gaza. Israel is putting military and political pressure on Hamas, backed by a strong support from Washington. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the campaign is nearing its end, even as international outrage grows over the killing of journalists Israel says were terrorists, and anti-Semitic violence surges abroad. Anticipating Israel's planning takeover of Gaza City, Netanyahu claims the war is nearing its end, especially, he said, in these days of great victories against those who came to destroy us, as we stand before the end of the campaign and work to defeat the remainder of the Iranian Axis and free all of our captives. President Donald Trump is backing Netanyahu's rejection of any particular hostage deal. The White House says more military pressure is needed before Hamas will agree. Senior Senator Lindsey Graham of Royal Saskatchewan contends that Hamas must be destroyed enough already. Graham declared, "Destroy Hamas. Do not do to Hamas what we did to the Germans and the Japanese during World War II, to annihilate them and rebuild Palestine society like we did with Germany and Japan." After sharp international criticism over the killing of 5 journalists in an airstrike, including a prominent Al Jazeera reporter, the Israel Defense Forces revealed they have evidence that he was a paid terrorist and a cell leader, at one point posing for a selfie with Hamas leaders. Nicole Sadak, a new correspondent for I-24 News, explains Israel is stating that this was a journalist who had ties to Hamas, and we published those ties to Hamas back in October, published those to this. So this is no new information to anyone. It's been out from October, and more of the pictures and evidence that seems to be coming out shows that this journalist had at least very strong connections to the main leaders of Hamas, as well as anti-Semitic acts rise. Israel President Isaac Herzog calls to console a Jewish Canadian father who was assaulted in front of his children in Montreal. Herzog's office issued a statement from the President reading, "May you have a swift recovery in body and soul for this terrible ordeal. We are with you and we were here with you. The whole Jewish people stands with you," Jewish Foreign Minister Gideon Saar said in a statement that the attack was shocking and stomach turning. And so it was. Hello, Scott T. Thank you very much for coming on. Hello, Consti. Hello, hasn't seen gifts for a while. Hi, Bravo. Hello, Scott Puffern up. Nice to see you on. Tim Scott, Recipe for Greatness. Remember American religious roots. Washington, in his capacity as chairman, Senator Tim Scott recently managed to push through the first bipartisan bill the Senate Banking Committee has produced in more than 10 years. Remarkably, it was approved unanimously 24-0 in an era marked by polarization and partisan friction. Scott also has a prescription to break the division in the public sphere. He writes about it in his new book, Our Nation Always Under God Profiles in Christian Courage. Scott makes the case that America's past and future success are rooted in a rich, abiding history of faith. He discusses his book along with a host of issues in the headlines with CBN's John Jessup at the headquarters of the National Republican Senatorial Committee in Washington, D.C. Below it is a transcript of the interview with minor edits for readability on Republican Disunity's Stay on message. John Jessup, you have immigration and border crossing that you're down. They are the one big beautiful. Then the one big beautiful bill was passed and set up a lot of President Trump's second term agenda. But what's filling the headlines is a lot of talk about division within the Republican ranks, whether it's about the Jeffrey Epstein files or the Gaza war, the reported cases of starvation. Do you think the GOP is stepping on its own message of success? Tim Scott, I think the simple message is the road to socialism leads right through a divided Republican Party. The good Lord has blessed us with victory, in my opinion. Anytime we're talking about something that isn't a promise that we made, that is a promise we are keeping. We are on the wrong topic, and so I've been laser focused on the guy in charge of our re-elections from the state senators running for re-election. This cycle stay on message. When we do, we get a 5 to 20 point advantage, and so I want to make sure that we are on topic, and because it works for us, and frankly it only works for us because it works for the American people. A plan for the housing crisis. Jessup, we're in the middle of what the world refers to as a housing crisis, not just in terms of housing supply, but affordability. The Senator Ranking Committee just passed the Road to Housing Act unanimously. Scott Senator Scott, yes, praise the Lord. Jessup, how did we get here? And what is the plan to fix it so that you're making part of the American dream, which is ownership, a reality for Americans. Senator Scott, you know my mother was unable to buy a home until she was 38 years old. Think about that. At the exact same time now, that was 1982. Literally today, the average first-time home buyer is around 38 years old. Why? Prices are too high, supply is too low, and the regulatory environment that exists is just too much. And so what the Road to Housing Act does, I've been working on it for years now. When I took over as chairman, I said that my job is to put legislation before the Congress that could become law signed by the President, which means it has to be the President, which means it has to be bipartisan. I worked night and day with members of both sides of the aisle to make sure that we presented all of the American people in the road to the housing bill. That's good for Americans, definitely are in great need of cheap housing so that young people can get into the market. Next. Reduce this down with Israel. You can't. Yes, I can stand with Israel, smart ass. I'll just don't know your name, but you didn't put it up. But you said your video says you stand with Israel. Shame you can't. Well, actually, I can stand with Israel in body and soul, mind and spirit, because that's what matters, not whether my legs work or not. It's in your head that you support something, not in how tall you are. So if anybody else would like to know that I am paralysed from the shoulders down, and I was paralysed whenever I was 18. I had my birthday on the 20th of May and had my accident on the 4th of September, which left me on a ventilator and tubes in my lungs, needing a baclofen pump and a suprapubic catheter to be able to live. And that's what it is. That's why that boy used that just to get at me, but that's shame on him, not shame on me. More news. The Revival Generation, CBN film about spiritual awakening to debut at iconic Kennedy Center. A powerful new film from CBN being released at the iconic Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. on August 27th. The premiere of The Revival Generation spotlights the incredible move of U of A happening right now in Generation Z. The one-night event will feature not only the premiere of the film but also a time of worship as attendees gather to witness and celebrate the revival sweeping a generation. The movie captures amazing moments from the spiritual awakening among today's youth as they find hope, purpose and identity in Jesus Christ amid a culture marked by anxiety and confusion. The film follows the nationwide campus revival movement that CBN News has been faithfully covering, a moment marked by repentance and salvations, followed by mass baptisms held in lakes, fountains, and football stadiums. At the centre of the film narrative, Toya Pivot, a mother whose personal journey through her daughter's hidden pain becomes the spark of something much bigger. What began as a desperate cry for help turned into a Unite Us, student-led revival work movement that was born on September 12th, 2023, with thousands gathered in prayer at Auburn University. As I see the Unite US story shared in the revival generation, I'm reminded that prayer is powerful and great things can happen when we say yes to God. Yes to God, said Unite Us founder and visionary Tony Pruitt. Generation Z is experiencing spiritual revival like never before, and we should be expectant for the ways that God will continue to move among this generation. I'm grateful to CBN and the Kennedy Centre for their willingness to host this documentary premiere and share stories of revival, purpose, and hope that are sweeping across our nation. Isn't that just a wonderful thing that sort of stuff is spreading across the nation? The Revival Generation documentary was directed by Laura Hand and produced by Abigail Robinson. When we started working on this documentary, we never imagined it would be a one-day premiere in the iconic Kennedy Centre Concert Hall, but God had plans far greater than ours, said Robertson. CBN is incredibly grateful to the Kennedy Centre for not only hosting the Revival Generation premiere, but for partnering with us to make this night truly extraordinary. The film offers inspiring testimonies, moving worship, and valuable insights from Christian leaders like David Ben Carson and Jenny Allen. The Revival Generation reveals how students are finding healing and purpose through a relationship with Jesus. Hello Toby 202, nice to see you on. Hello Five Guys FC, nice to see you on. Hello Daily Holden 4706, nice to see you on. And I know Bobby, even though you don't realise it, I'm glad to see you on too. What's a due list? T apparently thinks he's being funny by saying, what's a Jew's favourite insect? A zyklon. That's for anybody who doesn't get that. It was Zyklon B gas that the Nazis used to drown the Jewish people in the showers. So that is just be a sick and sad individual that would say that there. I might even put a complaint in there, because that's basically calling for Jewish people to be gassed, and you can't have that being going on. especially what all the Jews have done for us over the years. And it's to whoever T is just bringing the whole decorum of this here live down. And the next live is VA school staff accused of bypassing parents paying for abortions of 2 students. A Virginia high school district has announced it is investigating claims that staff members at a local high school arranged abortions for students without notifying their parents. Officials with Fairfax County Public Schools told Will Winslow TV they are investigating school staff at Centerville High School in Union Hill, Virginia, to determine whether they arranged a paid for abortion for 2 girls. We learned yesterday of these concerned allegations from 2001. FCPS said in its statement that the outlet last week, we are launching an immediate and circumspensive investigation as we take all concerns of student well-being very seriously. Virginia law currently requires parents' consent unless the teenager appeals for a judicial bypass. However, while counselling pregnant students, guidelines set by FPC state that every effort shall be made to encourage and support students suspecting pregnancy to discuss their concerns with their parents as guardians. It does not require FCPS employees to inform parents about these conversations. If a student requires counselling services or is considered to be in the need of such services, school staff members should refer the student to the student health nurse or Fairfax County Department of Health and avoid influencing the student regard and pregnancy. Read the directive. Last week, FBCPS Superintendent Michelle Reid sent a letter to the Centerville High School community addressing the allegations. I want to stress that at no time would the situation as described in these allegations be acceptable in Fairfax County Public Schools. She explained we all have serious questions about the allegations that must be answered. We all deserve to know what happened. Jewish and people in the same sentence. What have the Jews done for the years I'm interested? They have built society, they've built communities, they've turned Israel into a fertile oasis that in only 75 years, what the work that they've done to Israel from the move to Israel is just unquantifiable. And Jewish people have worked hard in banks, in as solicitors, as architects, mathematicians. Jewish people have got more Nobel Peace Prizes per capita than any other people group combined. So that's some of the things that they've done. What's the next one? Famed animator quits Disney over loud conviction. Prolific film imitator Tom Bancroft, a son of California, has a fast pass to Disney, but it all came to a screaming halt in 2000. While his name might not be familiar, his work has made its way into countless homes across the globe. He was the creator of Mushu in Disney's Mulan. He designed young Simba in The Lion King, and he worked on several other film Disney classics like Tarzan, Aladdin, and Beauty and the Beast. Bancroft was even offered the role of the lead animator of 2002, Lilo and Stitch, but he turned it down. He traded his Mickey ears, he said, to go work with vegetables. The successful artist recently appeared on CBN's Faith and Culture podcast, where he opened up about what led him to turn away from his dream job at Disney and pursue faith-based work. Where he was just starting out, Bancroft attended the California Institute of Arts. Then in the late 1980s, he and his twin brother Tony began internships at the Walt Disney Company, where they both worked on The Little Mermaid. After 12 years with Disney, Bancroft said he felt a calling that got very loud. I think I was able to dodge it for a long time, unfortunately, he said, but I think it got very loud in 2000s. In 2000s, I broke away from Disney as I felt like I knew exactly where I needed to go. Bancroft then spent a couple of years working on VeggieTales. I was about to be a lead animator on Lilo and Stitch and I gave that up to go work with vegetables, he joked. Nothing, it was his faith that pulled him out of what would be any animator's big dream. 17, Giffen, I do support Israel, yes. Delander, I do. But do you support Israel? Yes, I do. I support Israel because they're the only country in the Middle East that the Jewish people can survive, and that is in the land of Israel. Because they've been kicked out of every Arab Muslim state that they were in, living peaceably. When radical Islam came along, they obviously couldn't stay there any longer, so that's why they've been running for such a long time. And thank God in 1948 there was a country made for them where they could go and live the rest of their lives out in peace and with an army to back them up. Thank you for asking. Iran execution rates soar amid unprecedented crackdown against dissent. Iran's rulers are carrying out one of the most visible and deadly crackdowns in decades, with mass arrests, political trials and executions surging at an alarming rate. Stephen Rapp, from US Ambassador at Large in the Office of Global Criminal Justice, tells CBN News the Iranian regime isn't just cracking down with arrests or beatings, it's using executions to silence dissent, with the numbers rising fast after the recent war with Israel. There are the thousands of political prisoners and they could discharge them with these phony charges and begin mass executions, really just judicial murders of peaceful opponents. Rappaport told CBN News. Human rights activists say the scale is staggering. In 2023, Iran executed more than 850 people. The following year, the total rose to 975. Now, just 7 months into 2025, over 700 executions have already been recorded, putting the country on track to shatter previous records. The Islamic Republic continues to be the leading state sponsor of executions, second only to the Chinese Communist Party, said Jatanya Yeshaya, and with the Washington D.C. based Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. Authorities are accused of using vague charges like enmity against God to target dissenters. The regime fears its people must, more than any potential external attack, because ultimately in this perspective they can absorb any attack on their military installations, explains Saya. However, if the discontent internally will expand and lead to nationwide unrest, as it has in the past, it would really be the key catalyst for regime change. Recent executions include 3 Kurdish men and a top nuclear scientist accused of collaborating with Israel. What I fear is instead of 1,000 a year, we could end up with literally tens of thousands being executed, Rappaport said. Lana Silk of Transform Iran says security forces are now stopping citizens in the streets. People are being rounded up all over the place. People are being stopped in the streets and told to hand over their cell phones while they check messaging history, photos taken, phone calls made, websites visited. It's just blanket across the board. Silk tells CBN News cars are being stopped and checked, homes are being raided, no one is safe. And it's not only political activists leading the attacks, and the internal crackdowns expand and intensify. The religious minorities tend to be on the front lines of the repression apparatus, and said Say. Last month, 21 Iranian Christians were arrested in 5 cities, accused of spreading Zionist Christianity and acting against national security. Those 2 things are the classic accusations for Christians when they get arrested and charged with something said so. Of course, the government just wants to stop and spread of Christianity in Iran, but this is amplified now because they are paranoid. Days after the Israel-Iran ceasefire, the regime's state-run Fars News agency, which heads the Revolutionary Guard, openly called for a repeat of the 1988 massacre, where 30,000 political prisoners were secretly executed. They got away with this mass murder in 1988. Rapp said they think they can only get away with it again. Experts warn the silence from the US, Europe, and the other global powers only emboldens the regime. As long as the international community, the United States and Europe particularly, do not speak up against these heinous crimes, the region therefore doesn't feel any obligation to scale back its eternal repression, said Saya. I wish for you, I wish for you, for you wish for Palestine. I want Palestine to be free of Hamas, so that the Palestinians who have been living in abject poverty and on the brink of starvation by the very people that are supposed to be in charge. I want the Palestinians to know what real freedom's like, so that they can live in peace and live securely, and not by building tunnels, bombs, rockets, grenades, kites where they can fly into Israel. No, no more. Love is the answer, and that is the only answer, love, when people lay down their arms for a more positive calling, and that is that we should love one another, as after all we are all Abram's seed. Shalom, Maranatha, and Hallelujah.